One of the many changes Fringe Sport made when it changed from the Dane 1.0 to the 2.0 was redesigning their JHooks. And on paper, these things should be awesome, right? There's UHMW in all the right places. They're big, they're beefy, they've got this cool trim on the side. The problem is, every time I grab these things, I absolutely hate them. Until now. Welcome back to GymCrafter YouTube channel, everybody, and it is Friday, so happy Friday, everybody. It is time for another Fast Friday video, and I've got something a little different for you today. This video is really going to apply to those of you out there who own the Dane 2.0, or those of you thinking about buying the Dane 2.0, because it's cool, like I said in the intro, as these JHooks are, they've got a couple problems and then one thing that I wish was different, and I fixed all three of those things recently, so I figured I'd shoot a video, show you how to do it, so that in 5 to 10 minutes, you can take a JHook that really is very unpleasant and turn it into a JHook, which is not only going to look cooler, but is a whole lot more pleasant to use. So what happened with these JHooks is the idea was on the Dane 1.0, they had a standard sandwich JHook, and what that means is that there was metal on either side of the hook and then UHMW in the middle. The problem is that the metal stuck out further than UHMW. The point of the UHMW plastic is to protect your barbell if it hits the hook. Can't do a really good job of protecting the barbell if it's recessed inside the metal. So on the Dane 2.0, they redesigned these and they flipped that design around and they went to metal in the middle and then UHMW on the outside. I'm guessing this is less expensive to manufacture because there's less metal and less welding, and UHMW is less expensive. The problem is the execution of this design just lacks a couple of things. So let me show you the three things that I changed, like I said, to turn these into these, and hopefully on camera you can at least see one of the differences, if not two or three of them. But the first issue is that the UHMW that they put on the outside of these JHooks is very sharp around the edges. And I don't mean like, hey, oh, it would be nice if that was less sharp. Like, it's really sharp, as in these heavy JHooks, and they're nice and heavy, actually hurt to grab. They're painful. This is a real sharp edge all the way around the outside. So that's the first thing that we're going to fix. That wouldn't be so bad because, as you could probably imagine, we're just going to kind of sand them down a little bit. But the other part is the hardware that connects these two together, they just use some random out-of-the-box hardware, which is really the wrong size and honestly the wrong kind of hardware. So this hardware is just a standard cap head bolt, and the one end where it sticks through where the nut is really long. And so when you grab these, not only are you getting kind of hurt by the edges of this UHMW, you're getting poked by these screws. And these are, guys, I love my Dane 2, but these are genuinely unpleasant to use. So I'd had enough, I decided to fix it, and I got real lucky in finding some real cool ways to address this. So I'm gonna put links to everything I used today down below in the description. There's a couple of small parts I used from Amazon, which you're gonna want. The cool thing is, it's almost like these were made for these parts. So let me show you what I did. I'm gonna move the camera to an overhead view here, and we're gonna get to work fixing these so that you can fix yours, or like I said, if you're ordering a Dane 2.0, you can fix these once you get them. So to recap, here's where we're going from and to. Here's where we're going from. Again, the edges are too sharp. These bolt heads really stick out way too far and kind of pointy. And honestly, while I've got this apart, I decided to customize it a little bit to match my gym and my rack. I'll show you what I did here. What you're gonna see on these is, number one, I did some green trim on the inside. I'll show you how to do that. I rounded off the edges, and then I changed. You can see that there are different bolts inside. So let's get this one apart. We'll fix it right here on the video so you can follow along, and we'll make sure that they both look like this. So the first thing we're going to need is your tools, and here's what I used. I've got a couple of Allen wrenches. These are 4mm. If you guys do a lot of Allen wrench work, I always recommend these T-handle Allen wrenches. I'll put a link down below to a few of these, but man, I can't tell you how much I love using these versus those little tiny Allen keys. I'm going to use a small crescent wrench to get this stuff off of here. I've got a sanding block. I've got a Dremel tool, which you probably don't need. You could probably get away with just the sanding block, but why not use a power tool if you can? And then I've got these new screws from Amazon, and I will put a link to the exact size and type of these. I've seen these called different things. They're called barrel head or cap head screws, and basically what they are is, instead of a nut and a bolt, you've got a head on both ends. One is hollow on the inside, one is a screw, and they basically screw into each other so that you have the flat part on both sides. The cool thing is I found some that it's almost like the JHooks were made for these. These fit just like you drilled a hole specifically for them. So I've got these guys right here, which we're going to install. And then I've got a couple other odds and ends. I've got a Pasco Paint pen, if you've never dealt with paint pens before, these things are awesome. And then I've got a little bit of Loctite so we make sure that everything stays together. So let's get this apart. We'll get this all shaped up and back together. Step one is going to be taking the UHMW off of the sides. This comes right off with the 4 screws that are in here. You're not going to need these screws once you're done because you're going to completely replace them. But what you're going to do is unscrew all of them. And then what you're also going to notice is that the holes that are drilled inside the UHMW are actually much larger than these screws. So another nice little thing that this fix is going to take care of is once we're done, everything's going to be aligned and really seated properly because the holes drilled in the metal are the same size as the holes drilled in the UHMW. And because the new screws we use are going to fit those holes perfectly, you're going to align everything really, really well inside here. So we're going to finish getting these bolts off of here and get this UHMW off of here. Once the 4 screws are out, these are just going to come off. Now there is a right and a left. What you'll notice is that on the backs of these where it meets the inside, because there's some welds here, there's actually a beveled edge on the inside that allows this to seat flat and go over that. So there is a correct side, but you're going to have a hard time putting them back on wrong, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. The only reason I would point that out is because we're actually going to fix and kind of buffer off this side, which is the sharp edge which hits your hands. And for that, we're going to use a Dremel tool. Now, if you don't have a Dremel tool, and if you don't have a Dremel tool, you should own a Dremel tool. But if you don't have one, a sanding block, a piece of sandpaper, probably even an X-Acto knife, all we're trying to do is we're just trying to knock off these edges. I like using the Dremel tool because it's fast. I'm going to finish it off with a sanding block so that it's nice and smooth. We're not taking off a ton. What I found is you just need to barely knock off this corner and it becomes very comfortable to handle. And what I'm using is I'm using a little sanding head. It's just this barrel with sandpaper on it. There's a bunch of Dremel tool attachments which will probably work, any of the grinding wheels or anything like that. But I like using this because A, it's a power tool, and well, power tools, and B, like I said, it's a little bit quicker. So let's get these edges knocked off and then we'll get them sanded down. A couple of heads up on this is number one, when you're done, you're going to be covered in little plastic bits. So the first one of these I did outside. I'm doing this one in my gym because that's where the camera's set up, but I'm going to have to vacuum when I'm done. So just be aware of that. And then number two, one of the reasons I do like using the Dremel tool is when you're doing these little inner corners here, the little head gets right into those corners. So it's a nice even finish all the way around. What you'll notice when you're done is you're going to have some plastic right around the outside that needs to come off. And again, you could probably do this with an X-Acto knife or really any number of tools. I'm going to take a sanding block and just really knock off these corners. And what'll happen is once I do that, these edges just become night and day difference from what they were. They used to be, again, really sharp. You know, really the thing, if I was to tell you the things that I wish were different about the Dane these J-cups were number one. These were things that literally I disliked touching every time I came in here to use them. And I'm surprised it took me this long to get around to doing this. If I didn't normally film videos on this stuff, it would already be done, but I knew I wanted to show you guys. But I'm happy, I'm getting to it. And now you see this is all rounded off. There's no more plastic shaving anywhere. Let me do the other one and then we will get to the next step. Now that I've got the UHMW all prepared and ready to go back on, as I was doing this, what I've been doing, if you're following the channel, is I'm slowly converting the accent colors on the Dane from red to green. And I had this idea in my mind that it would look cool to have some type of a green accent on the JHook. So what I'm going to do is while these are off, I'm going to paint the inside here. You don't need to make this into a big project. This is called a Posca paint marker. These things will work on, I think, 50 different surfaces, including metal. They're a water-based paint, so when you get it on your hand, it'll actually come off, but it works really, really well. It's got a little fine tip to it, so you'll see that it's easy to apply where you need to. I used 2 coats. I noticed that after the first coat, it was a little splotchy, but after 2 coats, it looks really, really nice. Because it's recessed, it'll stay there. And I actually really love the way that this looks. You can get these at Hobby Lobby. I think this was like $3.29. I'll also put a link to these on Amazon below if you want to pick one up. But whatever the accent color of your gym is, you can actually go ahead and touch up and do some details. You could do the bolt heads if you wanted. You could color in the inside of the Fringe Sport logo. There's a bunch of different, in fact, that's a good idea. I think I might do that. But there's a bunch of different things that you might actually do with these that'll make your rack look cool. I'm going to take a minute and go ahead and color in the center here before we put the UHMW back on with the new bolts. Before we move on, a couple tips on the paint. Number one, you absolutely need to do 2 coats. You want to let the first coat dry before you put on the second one. Otherwise, the tip of the marker actually erases the first coat unless it's dry. The other one is I went ahead and removed these plates. And as you can see, I colored in behind the fringe board. I think that looks pretty awesome. So that's something else you can do to kind of customize your JHooks. But we are all painted and ready to go. Now I looked up what these are called. Again, I'll put a link below. These are called carbon steel black hex drive socket cap bolt barrel nuts. So it's quite a mouthful. But it's basically like I said, I've got one end that goes into the other end and they're both flat on the side. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put our UHMW back on again. The chamfered edge goes, or the knocked off edge goes along the welds here. And then what you're going to do is you're simply going to take the hollow portion and you're just going to seat it through. Notice that they fit. I mean, they couldn't fit any better. They really just fit almost exactly. So you're going to go ahead and put those in here, and then you're going to take one of the other end, the male end, and take just a touch of Loctite. I don't know if this is necessary, but I'm a little overcautious this way. Use the blue Loctite, not the red Loctite. The red Loctite actually is meant to never come undone. This blue stuff you can undo if you need to. So if you ever need to unscrew these or you want to change the color of that insert or something like that, you can do that. But then get these screwed in, and then what I found doing that first one is we're going to hand tighten these a little bit of the way, because you may need to actually move these around a little bit in order to make sure that all of these actually fit and get seated. But once they get seated, we'll tighten them all back down and we will be done. And here we have the finished JHook. So just as a note to you guys, like I said, I'll put links below. These are the 25mm bolts. So as you can see, they fit pretty much exactly across. So you've got a nice tight fit. But now I've got nice smooth caps on both sides. I have nothing poking me in the hand. This is nice and smooth. This is nicely trimmed. This is nicely trimmed. Let's wrap this video up. So there you have it, everybody. A not so fast Friday. Well, we'll see how fast it is once I get this edited all down. But now I went from JHooks that I literally, guys, I hated using these things to stuff that is a joy to use. It's comfortable in the hand. I love the way that they look. Deciding to backfill that fringe right here on the video was a great decision. I love the way that that looks. And quite honestly, guys, this is something that as I was doing this, I'm like, man, this should have come this way. So Fringe, if you're watching, would love to see you change this up and how these are put together. This is off-the-shelf hardware. You don't even need to drill different holes. You just need to have your factory use different hardware and just knock off these edges. It wouldn't take long to do it. You're already knocking off the edges in the back to make room for those welds. It wouldn't take long to do the same on the outside and then to put different hardware on here, and you've got a much, much better JHook. Attention to detail like this is something that sets companies apart from each other. And quite honestly, as much as I enjoy doing projects like this, I don't necessarily think I should have to do projects like this. I would love it if things came out of the box this way. But since they didn't, and since a lot of you have the Dane 2, hopefully this helps you out. I hope you enjoyed this tip and this Fast Friday. Everybody go out and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks for checking out another video. And until next week, I'm Tim with GymCrafter.